Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you, robot overlord.
okay, now I need to go back to the PowerPoint here. Okay. Okay, everybody, it's just us here, just us peeps. So, for posterity, for the recording, just want to welcome everybody here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Jessica Winum. I'll get to my introduction slide in a minute. That's not how you spell my name. But I'm going to give a talk on how the LGBTQ plus community can lead the fight against book bans, advocating for inclusive literature in today's political climate, which is getting more intense by the day. So who am I? I am, I don't know why the slide messed it up. My name was over in the white space before. Anyway, so you can see me there. My name is Jessica Winum. I'm the director of the Naples Library. Currently, I am there next to Pam Helming in the black and white shirt. This is from Advocacy Day from this past February. Advocacy Day is a day every year in February when anybody who is interested in causes that affect the library world, we descend upon Albany for the day, and we get in touch with our state senators and our assembly people, and we discuss with them our funding and the causes that are important to us. We don't usually have FaceTime with our senators, so this was our lucky day. Pam Helming is actually, even though she's a Republican, I'll go ahead and put that out there, her mother was a librarian. So she is actually very supportive of libraries. I didn't directly speak with her. We didn't directly speak with her about book banning, but there is legislation on the floor right now that would prevent books from being banned. Some states, like Illinois, was the first state a couple of summers ago to put legislation out that would basically ban book bans, in that if a library or a school allowed books to be banned, they would have state funding withheld. New York is not taking that tack because it does get a little dicey when funding is tied up with that kind of thing. So if you go on, and actually I can also forward this, if you go onto the website for the state senate or your legislators, there's a link to where you can follow legislation that's going through, and you can read the bill, and you can encourage your legislator to promote that bill, and that is definitely something that you would want. So that would end the problem altogether. So that's something that you definitely want to go for. So again, a little bit more about me. Obviously, I'm very interested in advocacy. I'm the director at Naples. I've been there since December. Before that, I worked at the Geneva Public Library for 2 years, and then I was at the Bristol Library and the Keuka College Library. I've been interested in libraries since I was a toddler, when I used to go to story time. And fighting book bans is in my blood. So this gentleman is William Pynchon. He lived in the 1500s, 1600s. He was an author, a colonizer, unfortunately. However, he did take the tack that we should be kind to the Indians, particularly the Pocumtuck Indians who lived in the area. It's now the state line between Connecticut and Massachusetts. He founded the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, and he's my 10th great-grandfather. And he happened to be the author of this book, which was the second banned book in North America. He wrote the book, and his premise was that everybody could go to heaven, and the Puritans did not like that book. So they piled every copy. It was published in England in 1650, brought over to America. There were only 4 copies left when they were done burning them all on Boston Common. So you can see my little, this is him, this is me. So I'm related to a lot of suffragettes and people like this. So this kind of work is in my blood. I'm sure I have a lot of unsavory characters in my past also. So let's see, where am I here? Come back. All right, I'll just go over here. So let's talk a little bit about what is a book ban, because I'm sure you've heard of book bans versus a challenge. According to PEN America is an organization. They really focus on tracking and helping people to fight book bans and book challenges in schools versus libraries. And the ALA, the American Library Association, and some other organizations focus on libraries. PEN America defines school book bans as any action taken against a book based on its content and as a result of a parent or community challenges, administrative decisions, or in response to direct or threatened action by lawmakers or other governmental officials that leads to a previously accessible book being either completely removed from availability to students, or where access to book is restricted or diminished. Diminished access is a form of censorship and has educational implications that extend beyond a title's removal. So for instance, that might be where they would take a book that formerly was in, say, the middle school library and put it in high school library, something like that. Or at a public library, they might take a book and put it in the adult section. Or there's been public libraries that have made it so that kids can't go in the library at all. A challenge is any attempt to restrict or remove a book based on objections to its content. And then the removal is restriction of those materials. PEN America does not track challenges. Other organizations do track challenges. So you're going to see throughout my presentation, the language vary a little bit and the numbers vary.
So the challenge happens first, and then if it's successful, then the book gets banned?
Correct. And also you'll see what's important to also track is how they treat the book during the challenge. So do they keep the book accessible during the challenge, or do they remove the book during the challenge? The book should remain accessible during the challenge because guilty until proven innocent. Anybody have any questions or comments so far? I'm happy to keep this discussion based since it's just us, by all means. So if you have anything you want to say, speak up. Okay, so right now, libraries and schools are facing a new wave of censorship, as we all know. But when you see the numbers, you'll find that it's quite sobering. In 2023-2024 school year, PEN America found more than 10,000 book bans affecting more than 4,000 unique titles. 45% of the bans were in Florida and 36% were in Iowa. LGBTQ plus stories are disproportionately targeted. The other ones that are targeted, of course, are those that are racial justice ones. Those 2 topics are the most. But of course, the LGBTQ plus community has a long history of resistance and activism. Unfortunately, you've had to have that. The first, so I delved into the history a little bit. In 1958, One magazine won a Supreme Court case for gay free speech. And then in 1969, Stonewall Uprising marked the turning point. Let's see, I have a bit of notes here and stuff. I had never heard about this. So let's see. Is anybody familiar with One magazine? I didn't print my notes, so apologize. I believe it was just that whether it could be printed or not, and they took it all the way to the Supreme Court to say that yes, this magazine could be printed. And that was the first time that specifically LGBTQ plus material had been pushed that far, but that was a landmark case in opening up that subject to having free speech.
And like you can't tell from the image you have there what's inside of One magazine, but based on judging a book by its cover, which we're supposed to do, but it's got a pretty little like falling leaves motif. It's not like it's a hardcore porn
Correct.
publications, but I'm sure they, they were making some argument about it being,
Yes.
orient interest and all this kind of stuff. So glad to see even in 58.
Correct.
Notched a win.
Correct. Okay. So why does this fight matter? Book bans erase identities, silence truth, and harm vulnerable youth. LGBTQ plus youth with access to affirming stories experience lower suicide rates, a greater sense of belonging, and stronger mental health. So here I've referred to, and you'll see here, the GLSEN study. And then I put another link in here to the New York specific, which is what is printed out here. So this is a organization that focuses on schools and teens' comfort level, access to materials in school, how they are treated in school. So whether they're teased in school, whether when they make complaints in school, is there positive, are their concerns addressed positively or negatively? Are the laws followed in school about making sure that their needs are addressed, their privacy concerns are addressed, things like that. So and this is from 2021, that's the most recent time that they've done a study. So it's pretty sobering. It's about half and half. Their needs are not met. They don't have access to the resources that they need. And you would think, I think that in New York, we think, oh, everything's pretty good here. But as you all know, that's not the case. I mean, we live in a red county, but I think even downstate, it's not the case. And this says a finding from the GLSEN 2021 National School Climate Survey demonstrate that New York schools were not safe for most LGBTQ plus secondary school students. In addition, many students in New York did not have access to important school supports. Of note, the 2020-2021 school year was unique in that the COVID-19 pandemic caused disruptions to schools across the country, as schools had to adapt in the wake of the pandemic, drastically changing how many students experience school. In New York, 5% of LGBTQ plus students attended school only in person, 25% attended only online, and 70% attended school in a hybrid setting. So if you guys think back to how, I mean, are you readers or how do you access books? What do they mean to you?
I think we would consider ourselves readers.
Yeah, this is like a really unique group. I think we're all like incredibly avid readers.
Yeah.
And how important was it to you to access characters that were like you.
Oh, I learned I was trans because I read about it in a book when I was in high school.
Right. So that's how important it is to have these materials for
Yeah, it
you.
was
And
a-
when they're removed, it's life-changing for you to have them or not have them. So that's what the difference is. And when we're buying books, that's why we try to have those materials in there. And for people of color, representation matters so much. It also matters even in a community where there's not that many people of color, because that might be exposure to a different way of life for somebody who isn't that color. That there's nothing wrong with a white child reading about a black child or a different culture from a book. That's how we learn. That's the purpose of books, is learning about other cultures. And that's a big discussion about, at library board meetings. Well, you're supposed to spend our money on things that are of interest to us. We want to see people who look like us. We want to see people who live their lives like us. Well, yeah, but you're also supposed to go learn about other people who don't look like you, who don't live like you. You're reading about space aliens, right? Like space aliens, it's a whole different world. Go read about somebody who lives in the inner city of Chicago, and that's how you're going to learn about what it's like to live in the inner city of Chicago. Open yourself up to other worlds. That's the whole point of reading.
I often try to put myself sort of in the shoes of the moderate to, gentle conservative side things who might, they're the people who are not necessarily, trying to burn books or anything, but who might be a little bit like, well, why are we spending all this time talking about it? It's kind of like, there are more important things, quote unquote, to attend
Correct.
to.
Yeah.
And like, and I don't want to like put words in the mouths of any of those people. I don't know what their thoughts are and motivations are, but I can't help but thinking they, like in their minds, they think that this would all just happen naturally if we stopped talking about it. Like
Mhm.
stuff would just like, there would just be books about Black kids in school libraries, and there'd be books about trans kids in libraries. And I don't think they realize that like there are such active forces pushing against it, but then also just like our own like human inertia, where if I didn't stop and think like, I'm responsible for like purchasing music for adult music for my library.
Right.
And I make a concerted effort to go through the entire little catalog and be like, I have no interest in country music. I have no interest in rap music, but we need to have those things in our collection. So I make a concerted effort to do it. And it wouldn't happen if I didn't. And I think it's the same thing, even with very well-intentioned librarians. We have to think about these things. We have to discuss these things. We have to go to conferences about these things to learn why it's important to serve representation. And I think people who don't get that grow frustrated hearing about it all the time. But like, it's much more frustrating to go to a library and not see anything that either reflects yourself, or if you're interested in a challenge or growth, doesn't challenge or grow you. So that's like, do you have any sense of whether like that's on the right track, or have you heard anecdotally from anybody who opposes any of this kind of stuff, if that's kind of where their thoughts are?
No, I think you're definitely on the right track for sure. Yeah.
Can I just make one comment too? I think it's like the height of privilege to just think that it's only marginalized communities that have to like make the effort to see themselves represented in media that isn't like white media, basically. So it's only marginalized communities who have to like learn to empathize with these characters that don't resemble them, but yet the majority group is like, oh, all the media is for me. I don't have to, God forbid, I like strain my mind to like even pretend for a moment that I'm slightly different than like what I normally, you know what I mean? It's just interesting that like the burden is on the marginalized groups to like be content with white media.
Straight media,
Yes,
citizen
yeah.
media, yeah.
And then just be okay with it and like challenge themselves to like empathize, but yet we don't expect that of like the majority groups.
Yes, right. So, what's concerning is that since 2021, the scale and the force of book banning in local communities has escalated dramatically. The book bans that have been tracked by PEN America, the that's writing this, stand out for scope and scale, occurring across dozens of states with hundreds of titles targeted, and the extent to which they have also been driven by political pressure and rhetoric from elected officials. Since 2021, PEN America has documented nearly 16,000 book bans in public schools nationwide, a number not seen since the Red Scare McCarthy era of the 1950s. The majority of banned books contain LGBTQ+ and BIPOC themes, and I keep stumbling over this. LGBTQ+ youth are often isolated by these bans. In New York State, there have been 79 book title challenges just this year, I believe. So we are not immune as a blue state, and that this comes from NYLA has an intellectual freedom arm, and they track this. This is a picture of Jodi Picoult's book, 19 Minutes. That is the most banned book. It's at the top of the banned book list this year. And 19 Minutes is about the 19 minutes before a school shooting.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the banned books, in fact, most of them are what we call in the library world YA titles. They're young adult titles. And they deal with topics that kids that age deal with on a daily basis. It doesn't matter that we don't want our kids reading about them. It's what they're dealing with. We had, it was last year, we had Ellen Hopkins. We invited Ellen Hopkins to Geneva. She's an author. She has 3 books on the top 10 banned books list, because one of her books was on the ones that was being banned in Clyde. And it's not just books that are being banned and fought over. This memo, I took this off of Reddit because it was just the first thing that popped up. But Smithtown is a library down on Long Island. And 3 years ago, their almost entire board voted to remove all materials related to Pride from their children's room because of the display, their Pride Month display. It was a ginormous brouhaha. Those people were then thrown from the board, and there was an ACLU, like they got called out by that, but it did end up turning out okay. But the point of the matter is that it was their own board, their own trustees, who voted for these materials to not be displayed in the children's room. And it took the director by surprise. In my management class, we had a class where he talked to us about the whole thing. It took the staff by surprise. The staff then received phone calls upon phone calls. Some of them were being harassed. Some of them were calls of support. It was a ginormous mess for about 2 weeks. And the reason that it happened was because they didn't have policies in place. Libraries have to have policies in place. So we learned as future directors, have policies in place about your displays and have policies in place about your events. So, of course, we all know about drag queen story hours and how volatile those can be, and how appalling and shameful it is that such a thing should be volatile. This is from the National Coalition Against Censorship, which is on the list of resources that I've listed for you to visit. But this says there's several states, Minnesota, South Dakota, Missouri, and Tennessee, that have attempted to put legislation in preventing libraries from having drag queen story hours, all of which are unconstitutional because it prevents free speech. Let's see, what else did it say? Sorry, sometimes I can't remember. Can't keep this stuff off the top of my head. They violate the First Amendment protections of free speech, and they discriminate against individuals on the basis of sexual orientation. So they should not be passing these laws banning them. However, I've been working at a library, particularly in New York State, where school district libraries have to face voters. We're asking for increases in our funding. Nobody wants to get the voters riled up and get them all upset. And you say, well, can't we have other events that are popular in our story time? Like, do we really need to have a drag queen story hour? And it's very sad that a director who is very LGBTQ friendly, who has children who are LGBTQ, says, I'd rather not have a drag queen story hour because I don't want to deal with all the brouhaha that might come from it. So this is the effect that these kinds of things are having on libraries. And it's sad and frustrating. We're all frustrated with it. According to PEN America, one of the most commonly banned books in 2 or more districts, so that totals 1,091 books. Books in this prominent subset overwhelmingly include books with people and characters of color and books with LGBTQ+ people and characters. From July 2023 to June 2024, PEN America's Index of School Book Bans, which I've linked here, and also I believe I sent you a link to, they recorded 10,046 instances of book bans across 29 states and 220 public school districts. When taken all together, since July 2021, we have recorded 15,000 instances of book bans across 43 states and 415 public school districts. Now, I haven't addressed here in this talk much about public libraries and what public librarians have suffered as far as book banning goes and being professionals as well. But Alex has read about it and heard about it. So have I. There was a book that came out a few months ago called That Librarian, in which a librarian wrote about her experience being a public librarian and dealing with book bans. It ruined her whole life. She was so targeted for basically just having books on her shelf that represented people in her community. So this is a difficult topic that we're all dealing with, but even when I went to the American Library Association conference in Chicago the year before last, there was probably a group of 150 people outside the conference center with picket signs calling all of us groomers and pornographers. And I wanted to go out and say to those people, you know, we are fighting to keep books on the shelf that are for everybody's interest. You too, like all books are on the shelf. We keep everybody's interest in mind. So I think if people really sat down and understood what we do as librarians, there would be more open-mindedness about it. Another thing that I would like to share that I think I will send to you also is a book riot, presentation that I went to, in which the woman gave the whole history behind the organizations that really started all of this work. And there's really one guy who started first the BIPOC, and going behind, what theory is it? Critical race theory. He started with critical race theory and really approached it like a marketer, picking these certain books, picking out these certain passages of these certain books, putting out the materials to certain organizations, particularly like Moms of Liberty, and telling him how to go to the board meetings, how to go to the library board meetings, how to file the challenges, and funneling out the information. And that's since 2021, what he's been doing. And then as soon as he blew up that, then he started with the LGBTQ plus community. And that's how we've gotten to where we are going. So she really honed in on that guy and how he did his approach. So I will share that information as well. It's really targeted towards libraries and how they need to build their policies, but that section of it is really informative. Okay, so now that we've had the frustrating and we're like, now we need to know, what can we do to fight back against this? There's lots of things that we can do. We don't have to lay down and just take it. So we can join or start a local banned books coalition. So since there really isn't one here, you can start one. Alex is great at doing those things. We had talked about putting a little bit of information into the newsletter that you send out.
Yeah, which like we can do anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like putting a little bit of information, maybe some of the advocacy stuff, putting links to that in.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we could take this and turn it into,
There you go.
yeah, a chunk of that.
Yeah. Partner with libraries, schools, and LGBTQ plus centers for doing things. So I think, that kind of stuff is really already happening. Excuse me, partnering with libraries. Keeping an eye on the schools, though, is really important. Because sometimes that's where the stuff all of a sudden crops up. And you think, oh my gosh, how did that happen? Making sure, checking in with your school librarian and checking to see what the policies are there, if they have policies against book banning or against not having displays, like, because that's what happened in Clyde. Did you guys know, are you familiar with what happened in Clyde?
I'm not sure if I am or not.
So at Clyde Savannah, not this past fall, but the fall before that, there was a gentleman there who didn't even have children in the school. He was going for months and months and months, saying he had picked out these certain 5 books, saying that they needed to be pulled from the school shelf, the school library. And because the school at the time did not have a librarian, number one, there was like an English teacher sort of acting as a librarian. And number two, they did not have any policies about what to do in the face of a challenge. So they didn't really have procedure to follow or anything. And so the school board ended up pulling the books. And then at the last minute, they changed their minds. And then there's a Moms for Liberty chapter up there. The Moms for Liberty then filed a law, and the guy, he's a pastor. So the Moms for Liberty and the guy then filed a lawsuit saying that they shouldn't have changed their minds. And so right now, that's where it is. It's in the courts right now.
Hmm.
So the books are on the shelf right now. There's 5 books, one by Colleen Hoover, one by Ellen Hopkins. One is by Sarah Moss, and I can't remember what the other 2 are.
One of those gotta be This Book is Gay or something, one of those ones, it's like.
Yes, right.
Or
Something.
or like Flamer or something.
Yeah, one of those, yeah.
What is that thing we went to?
That was in Almond. Or, yeah, there was another book banning in,
Cause we,
Allegheny County in a public library, and we went to
Oh.
the hearing that they had. about
Oh,
that one. That
okay.
was like last fall.
Yeah.
And it was about getting the LGBTQ books out of the children's section and into the adult section, with
Okay.
YA books and whatnot.
yeah, they were like reading passages of it.
Totally out of context.
Yeah, it's just like, first of all, no one, and it's like, if you're reading about like reproductive health, who just
Mhm.
like reads that out loud in an
Right.
open voice?
And that's what they were doing to like get like before this hearing, what these activists had been doing, take the books in question and just walk up to the circ desk and start reading the passages they objected to out loud,
Oh.
which I thought was so hilarious that the thing sitting on the shelf, not minding its own business, doesn't have the harmful effect that you're afraid of, but you walking up to where there's like some kids standing there waiting to check out books and reading it has
Right.
the quote unquote harmful effect. So like,
Yes,
these people need to get a clue and a life.
I know.
I believe-
exactly.
I do believe that wound up, in the favor of people who think like us. The books were kept where
Okay.
they were, and those people were told to take a hike very politely, but yeah. So that's
Yeah.
good.
That's good, yeah. Read a banned book this month. Just simply read the books, check them out of the library, get them circulating. There's lots of bookstores around that will have displays, stomping grounds up in Geneva. Bethany owns that, and
We love stomping ground.
yes, yes, we all love Bethany.
Mhm.
My daughter works there also. She has a banned book, at least the last time I was in there, she had a banned book display. So, read those banned books, and if you need to know which books are banned, you can just Google lists of banned books, and you will be shocked at which books have been banned in the past, which books are banned now. You will be shocked. Attend a local board meeting. All board meetings in New York State are subject to open meetings law. They have to be posted, and you can attend them. If you want to speak at them, you generally need to let them know ahead of time, or there's a little bit of time at the beginning where you can speak, but you can attend the board meetings. Speak up, show up, and share. Host queer read-ins and banned book clubs. We as librarians, we always love when people want to come do programs with us, but there's also you can have one at a coffee shop. You can do that kind of stuff. Elect candidates who protect the right to read. It's not always something that they talk about, but ask them and then promote it. Team up with educators, parents, mental health organizations, and faith leaders, and then invite LGBTQ+ authors for community events. So these are just a few of the things. There's also a ton of stuff in here. And this is available as a PDF online. So
Okay.
there's social things, social media things to
We can put
share.
some of this in the newsletter.
You can.
Yeah,
There-
there's a
there-
ton of stuff.
Don't let other parents tell you what your child can read.
That's right.
And that's the key thing, why? If you're a parent and you're leading this effort to ban or challenge a book, why do you get to say what my child has access to? Why do you get to say what I have access to read? You don't. You can say what your child has access to, but not what my child is.
Mhm.
So that's all I have for this evening's presentation.
That's a perfect one.
Thank you very much.
Yes. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yes.
this opportunity.
It's amazing. I guess it's arrogance thinking that they somehow know better. Like,
Yes.
what they think is like the right thing.
Good for all kids universally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop this.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
recording.
Okay. To the right. There you go.